The room moves on before your body does. A joke gets a half laugh. A sentence lands a little crooked, or your smile stays on your face one beat after the moment has already changed. To everyone else, it may have been a passing blur. To you, it becomes the one bright dot in the whole evening. That is the strange private aftersound of a small social miss. Nothing dramatic happened. No one stood up. No one announced that you had failed. The conversation kept going. Plates shifted. Someone checked their phone. Another person started a new story. And still later, your mind returns to that exact second as if it contains evidence. The hardest part is how small the clue can be. One pause, one look away, one polite smile that seemed thinner than usual, one message reply that came back with fewer words than you expected. The mind does not always private, retelling the whole scene. It retells the part that felt uncertain, then starts filling in the rest from fear. And because you were inside the moment, your own reaction feels enormous. You remember the heat in your face. You remember how quickly you tried to recover. You remember the way you smiled, nodded, or acted casual, while a little surge was rising underneath. That inner volume can trick you into believing the room heard it too. But private tension is not the same thing as public attention. A feeling can be loud without being widely noticed. Your memory can zoom in on a tiny social wobble while everyone else's memory stores the night as dinner. A meeting, a chat, a normal Tuesday. The moment may feel like it stayed in the air because it stayed in you. That does not mean it stayed in them. This matters because the mind often treats social uncertainty like unfinished business. If the ending was unclear, it keeps looking for a cleaner one. It asks whether you should explain, whether you should text, whether you should be warmer next time, whether the other person has quietly changed their opinion of you. Underneath all of that is not weakness. It is the part of you that wants connection to stay intact. The private retelling is trying to protect you, even if it is using too much volume for too little evidence. Maybe the room did not keep holding the mistake. Maybe only your nervous system kept holding the question. So what actually happened in the moment you smiled, instead of stopping? That is why the next section stays with those ordinary seconds after the slip, when the room is still mostly quiet, and your interpretation starts getting louder. The smallest social mistakes often survive because you helped the room move past them. You call someone by the wrong name, and the correction arrives softly, not cruelly, not dramatically, just a small pause, a blink, a quick actually. And before the moment can become anything larger, your face has already done the work. You smile. You laugh lightly. You say, "Sorry, yes, of course," and keep the conversation moving. Outside, it looks handled. The room accepts the repair. The other person nods. Someone reaches for their cup. The topic changes. But inside, your body is still back at the first second, the exact second before you covered it. That is the strange part. The smile protects the flow, but it can also hide the stop sign from your own mind. Because you never fully paused, your brain does not get a clean ending. It does not get the clear evidence of, "We noticed, we corrected it, and we are fine." It gets something more unfinished. "I felt discomfort, I covered it quickly, and now I need to figure out what it meant." The same thing can happen on a screen. You reply too fast, then notice your message sounded colder than you meant. You send a little extra warmth after it. A second exclamation point. A haha you did not really feel. A smiling emoji placed like a small bandage over the sentence. The conversation continues, but your attention stays pressed against the tiny gap between what you meant and what might have been received. This is not because you are dramatic. It is because friendliness is one of the first tools many people reach for when connection feels even slightly at risk. The smile says, "Please do not let this become awkward." The quick laugh says, "I know something happened, and I am trying to keep us together." The warm follow-up says, "I still want this to feel okay." So the smile is not proof that you failed to handle the moment. Often, it is proof that you were trying to protect the relationship in real time, with the fastest tool available. But because the moment stayed socially smooth, it may not have felt emotionally complete. No one stopped to confirm that nothing serious happened. No one announced that you were still liked. No one handed you a neat ending. And when the outside world moves on before the inside world catches up, the mind starts searching for clues. It may go back to one face, one pause, one delayed reply, one slightly flatter tone, not because that cue contains the whole truth, but because it is the only piece the mind can grab. And once that happens, one small cue can start feeling much larger than the room it came from. That is why the next section can name the pattern clearly, instead of leaving it inside the flinch. Sometimes the room does not get louder. One detail does. Maybe it is the friend whose smile arrives half a beat late, or the person at the end of the table who looks away just as you laugh. Around them, the scene is still ordinary. Chairs shifting, someone reaching for a drink, two people starting a side conversation, a phone lighting up and going dark. But your attention does not stay with the whole scene. It grabs that one cue and starts treating it like the clearest truth in the room. This is how embarrassment changes the camera. It narrows the frame. Instead of letting you see the full, messy, unfinished social picture, it pulls one expression into focus and pushes everything else into the background. That is attention bias in plain language. The mind gives extra weight to the detail that feels most connected to danger. Not because you are weak, because your brain is trying to answer one urgent question. Did I just lose standing here? Then fear of being judged can make the cue sound even sharper. If the clue is unclear, it fills in the blank with the safer threat. A neutral face becomes irritation. A short answer becomes distance. A pause becomes proof. The mind acts like it is protecting you by preparing for rejection early, but it often mistakes uncertainty for information. It treats a blurry clue as if it came with subtitles. The spotlight effect adds the final layer. What felt huge inside your body starts feeling huge outside it too. You felt your smile stiffen, so it seems like everyone watched it happen. You felt your cheeks warm, so it seems like the whole table noticed. You heard the awkwardness in your own nervous system, so it seems impossible that the room did not hear it too. But feeling exposed is not the same as being observed. A private reaction can be intense without becoming a public event. One person may have missed the joke. One person may have been tired or distracted or hungry, or caught in their own private worry. One expression may have meant something, but it probably did not mean everything. Most rooms are softer than embarrassment makes them look. People are not a panel of judges arranged around your smallest mistake. They are also managing their own timing, their own faces, their own wish to seem normal. So imagine the scene visually. One sharp expression in the foreground, clear enough to sting, and behind it a soft, busy crowd that keeps moving. Your body may point to the foreground and say that is the whole story. But the wider picture says, no, that is one detail inside a larger room. That is the relief. The cue may be real, but the meaning may be oversized. Someone can notice an awkward second without turning it into a judgment. A glance can pass through the room without becoming a public story. A pause can simply be a pause. The feeling is real, but the evidence is smaller than the fear. And when the body cannot accept that yet, the mind tries to finish the scene another way. It starts looking for a message to send, a tone to check, a warmer version of you to perform next time. That is where repair work begins. That is why the next section can prove it. Inside one ordinary example, the repair work often begins after the room has already forgotten the moment. You get home, set your phone on the table, and suddenly the scene comes back with sharper edges. The small laugh, the quick smile, the way the other person looked down at their cup before answering. Nothing dramatic happened. Nobody pulled you aside. The conversation kept moving. But now, in the quiet, your mind treats the moment like an open tab that cannot be closed. So you reread the message thread, not once but in layers, first for the words, then for the timing, Then for the tone you imagine underneath the words. You notice that their last reply had no exclamation point, even though they usually use one. You draft a follow-up that sounds casual, then delete it because it sounds too casual. You write, "By the way, I hope that didn't come across weird earlier," and then stare at it long enough for the sentence to become suspicious. The example matters, because the repair is no longer about what happened in the room. It is about what uncertainty feels like afterward. The mind has found an empty space where a clear ending should be, and it begins trying to fill that space with action. Explain more. Act warmer. Send something friendly. Check the tone again. Make the next interaction extra smooth, so the relationship feels balanced. In small doses, this is deeply human. Relationships matter, so we monitor them. We look for signs of strain, because connection is important to us. But when self-monitoring gets too loud, the mind starts treating uncertainty like social debt. It says, "Until I know they are fine with me, I owe them something." That is when repair work can grow larger than the original miss. A 2-second pause becomes a reason to send a paragraph. A neutral reply becomes evidence that you should be brighter next time. A normal shift in someone's mood becomes a private assignment to fix the atmosphere. You may walk into the next conversation already performing the apology you never said out loud. Laughing faster, agreeing more, asking extra questions, proving that you are easy to be around. And because the other person does not know there is a repair project happening inside you, their ordinary behavior can keep feeding the cycle. If they are tired, you read distance. If they are brief, you read judgment. If they are kind, you wonder whether they are only being polite. Memory private retelling does not simply private retelling the scene. It edits the scene around the fear that something is still unpaid. Here is the quieter truth. The urge to repair does not automatically mean damage has been done. Often, it means the bond matters enough that your mind is trying to protect it before it has real evidence of danger. That difference matters. You may still choose to clarify something, especially if you actually hurt someone or crossed a line. But not every uneasy feeling is a bill that must be paid immediately. Sometimes it is only a clue. I care how this lands. And right there, before the follow-up message, before the extra warmth, before the explanation gets longer than the moment itself, there is a smaller place to stand. The feeling is real, but the public story is still unfinished. That is why the next section can turn the pattern into a usable move, instead of one more private rehearsal. The most important moment is not the awkward one. It is the second after it, when your body starts writing a story before the facts have arrived. A glance moves away. A reply takes longer than usual. Someone goes quiet right after you speak, and almost instantly, the mind wants to close the case. They are annoyed. I made it strange. I need to fix this before it becomes something bigger. But one glance, one silence, one delayed reply does not yet equal rejection. It is a cue. It is not the whole room. It is not the whole relationship. It is one small piece of evidence, arriving inside a nervous body. That is where the pause matters. Not a dramatic pause. Not a perfect calm breath where everything suddenly feels fine. Just enough space to notice that a feeling has appeared before the conclusion hardens around it. A tight chest is real. A hot face is real. The urge to send one more message can be real, but the meaning of it is still forming. The line to hold onto is simple. The feeling is real, but the public story is still unfinished. And the move can be small enough to use while still sitting at the table, still holding the phone, still smiling, because the moment is moving faster than you are. Interrupt the story for 1 second, not by arguing with yourself, but by catching the jump from "that felt bad" to "that means I was rejected." That jump is where the repair cycle usually begins. Then name what actually happened. Not the fear version, the plain version. They looked away. There was a pause. The message has not been answered yet. Naming the event keeps the mind from turning one cue into a whole social public story. Then widen the frame. What else could be true in the same room? Maybe they were tired. Maybe someone else caught their attention. Maybe the timing was awkward, but not important. Maybe the pause felt huge, because your attention had already zoomed in on it. The spotlight effect can make a private jolt feel public, but the crowd is usually softer and busier than your nervous system predicts. Then look for evidence before doing repair work. Has this person been warm before? Did the conversation continue? Did anyone else react? Is there actual damage, or just uncertainty asking for a task? This does not mean you ignore real ruptures. Sometimes a repair is kind. Sometimes a follow-up is honest. But the difference is that you are no longer repairing a public story you invented in the first rush of discomfort. You are waiting long enough to see what the moment really is. And often, once the story slows down, the scene becomes smaller. The room kept moving. The other person stayed human. The silence was not a sentence. The delayed reply was not a door closing. From there, the final move is to shrink the story back to a human scale and let one small miss remain one small miss. By the time you are still revisiting it, the room has usually gone back to being a room. Someone has reached for their coat. A glass has been moved to the edge of the table. A phone has lit up with a message no one else can see. The person whose face you keep studying in memory may already be thinking about the drive home, a deadline, a headache, a sentence they wish they had said differently. Their silence may have had more weather in it than judgment. And your smile, the one you keep questioning, was not the whole story. It was one small bridge you tried to lay down in an awkward second. Maybe it was too quick. Maybe it covered more discomfort than you meant it to. But it was still part of a larger connection, not a final report on who you are with them. This is the lens to keep. A social miss is allowed to be an event, not a narrator. It can be a strange pause. It can be a reply that came out too bright. It can be the tiny wrong rhythm of two people trying to meet each other in real time. But it does not have to become the voice that explains the whole friendship, the whole dinner, the whole message thread, the whole future. When you let the miss stay small, repair work changes shape. You can still be kind. You can still circle back if something truly needs care. But you do not have to polish the entire relationship until there is no trace of awkwardness left. Some warmth is allowed to have a wrinkle in it. Some closeness survives without being perfectly smooth. So return to the original scene with a little more mercy. The room kept moving. The other person had a life inside their face. Your smile was a moment, not a public story. And maybe the real repair is not proving that nothing awkward happened. Maybe the repair is learning to stop handing one small miss the microphone for the whole relationship. The durable lens is simple. Private tension is not the same thing as public attention, and one steadier question can stop a feeling from becoming a harsh public story too quickly. Carry forward one calmer question. What actually happened, and what part of the story arrived from the feeling itself? That matters, because a smaller first interpretation gives the room a chance to stay human.